tight enough where I can't escape, but not so tight where I can't have any blood flow.
Like this?
Yeah, and I go in the trance, I get limp. So she's marking the tape level to see if that's how much comes back.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Michael, I'm very happy to be able to have this interview with you today. And yesterday, when you gave the introductory talk, you said you were here in Basel for the first time at the Psi Verein 10 years ago. And afterwards, I remembered that after the first séance Eckert and I attended, afterwards we were talking to Lucius Wertmüller, the deceased president of the Psi Verein, whom he would say we should go next to a séance. And then he said, oh, go to Michael because he's coming from the US and I don't know if he will come again. And now, since then, you're here every year, twice
a year.
Yesterday you said you already were talking with your spirit guide at the age of 5, and I think that's really early.
It's kind of unique. You know, my mother, when she was 15 in 1959, was at a séance for her first time in Seattle, Washington. And a spirit, allegedly being a Jesus, came out in red light of the cabinet and told my mom, and not just my mom, he was talking to pretty much everybody, but he then went to her and said that you would have a child that would be a boy that would have these gifts like the medium. And those were what I call my favorite years. I remember being born. I even told my grandparents what my grandfather was wearing when he was looking in the window at the babies, at me, and that surprised them. But I remember laying in my, my crib, and Lady Nada would come, and other masters would come and play with me because at that time I was with my mother, and she left me alone quite a bit. And then as I got a little older, 3-4 years old, I was always talking to someone that wasn't there that nobody else could see. And then when I was 5, it even intensified. And it's been that way pretty much my whole life. I've had people think that there was something wrong with me, which there may well be, but my mentor, Reverend Keith Reinhardt, started training me with my grandmother's presence. Her name was Helen Lester. From the age of 4 till 6.5. And then something tragically happened to him, and then I ended up in the custody, of my mother. And I went through what I call my 20 years of the dark ages. And then I ended up in Sacramento, California with an opportunity to work with an individual by the name of Weston Bailey, who used to be Reinhardt's helper and ministered to his Hawaiian location where there was an Aquarian Foundation there in Waikiki. And I was with him for 5 years, and I just kept moving on. And then eventually, in 2015, I moved to Alaska, and we went down to Austin, Texas to do some work. And there was a gentleman by the name of Kevin Lee who was there that was going to be hosting a Kai Muge in Miami, Florida. Well, we drove. He said, you got to meet him. Okay. So we rented a van, 4 of us, and we drove all the way from Austin, Texas to Miami, Florida, which was over 2,000 miles, nonstop.
Yeah.
And and I like to stop and rest, And Kai and his wife Julia, wonderful lady, they flew in at like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I did a kind of a makeshift séance in a old tool shed, and apported a couple of objects for them from I don't remember which master. And next thing I know, I'm getting an email from Lucius and asked me if I, would be willing to come over here. And the people I was working with in Alaska said, let's go. So we set up a time and we came over here. And it was almost like a breath of fresh air, because the people were all loving and caring and happy. So I said to a gentleman that I was with at the time, I go, do you think they'll have me back? And and he said no, actually. And I go, why? Did something go wrong? He says, no, but they saw what you do. Why would they want you to come back? Well, 10 years later, here I am.
Yes, and now, this stone here, this big one, the center stone for the Basel Psi Centrum, that came through you as an apport when this first séance was.
Yeah, I remember that. I lost this tooth. It was still in there. When I got back home, I go, man, this hurts. So I went to the dentist, and he says, your tooth looks like sliced bread, right?
Yeah.
And it was shattered. It just didn't fall out.
Yeah.
And then he took it out. I've lost 2 teeth in my career, and I have a bunch of chipped teeth. In fact, last night there was a big the yellow one that you were given chipped this top tooth.
Oh, okay. So it's really hard work being a physical medium.
It has its downside.
Yeah. So let's a little bit come back to how you became a physical medium. So it wasn't straightforward, because you mentioned those 20 dark years, and I know you used to play in a rock band. You've been to the military, so it was not always that you wanted to be a physical medium.
Well, I'm a Cancer. We're very highly emotional, and I'd been angry for years that what I was told as a young boy didn't happen the way that it was told to me. And so I was kind of rebellious in a lot of ways. Even my anger actually got me kicked out of the school system. And then I went to a place called Job Corps for a few months. And then when I turned 17, I was living with my grandparents in Texas. I woke up, my grandma made me breakfast. My grandpa and grandma said, let's go. I said, where are we going? So we're taking you down to the recruitment station.
Oh.
And so they did, and I wanted to do it. And I went into the Marines office, and they laughed at me because they said, I have a baby face. You need to go look at the Army. So I did, and I got into the Army. And then after that, with the money that the Army gave me, I was going to college to be a veterinarian. At a place in Seattle. To be honest with you, at the age of 27, I attempted suicide. I was tired, angry, depressed. I had been doing cocaine pretty heavily. I started doing that up in Alaska because I was in the Bering Sea catching crabs. And I was trying to get away from my present wife at the time, not my wife now, and it just was bad. And then one night, I invited a couple of my friends to a hotel room. We smoked crack and snorted cocaine, and I was doing it on purpose to stop my heart. I succeeded, but there was a flaw in my plan. One of my friends that was with me called 911 before they left to get away before the cops came.
Oh, okay. So you were rescued.
Well, when I went to a treatment center, and on camera, I'm not going to say who my roommate was, but he was a very famous comedian. And that's what helped me, because I laughed my you-know-what every day, just rolling. And I said, I know you're this person. And he just smiles, but wouldn't say, because he was under a different name while I was there.
Oh, okay.
And when I got out, my wife at the time says, your mom's been calling. She wants you to come out to her house. And I'm like, no, I just don't want nothing to do with my mother, you know, because we don't have a very good relationship. And so I called her. I usually could think of an excuse, but I couldn't think of one. So we went out there, and two people that knew me when I was a little boy, that knew the prophecy about my birth, Weston Bailey and Kathleen Bailey, were at my mom's house. And I hadn't seen them since I was 7 years old. And he did some, what they call past life regression on me.
Yes.
3 pictures that were on the walls fell onto the floor at the same time.
Oh.
And I don't know this to be true, but Wes said I had dark entities in me, and as they were leaving, caused the pictures to fall. I probably did have a lot of darkness going on in myself, you know, at that time. But I was feeling good about myself because I went through the whole program at the treatment center, 31 days. And I haven't touched any kind of drugs except for, I did smoke marijuana until the age, or until 1997, and then I quit doing that because I went to a Navajo sweat and had a vision, and I don't need any of that stuff anymore.
So that suicide attempt was really a turning point in your life.
Yep, because Wes asked me to come to California to see if I liked it there. He introduced me to his congregation. I did a thing called psychometry readings, and people were impressed. And I went back to Seattle, where I was with my wife and my 2 children. A total of 7 now, but then was 2. And I thought about it, and I said, okay, let me come down. So I did, and for a year I was doing healing sessions on myself. And then just right around my, about 3 months before my birthday, I started training again. And then Saint Germain realized that the person that was training me didn't know what he was doing. And so the masters took over. But I wasn't a very good student. I was very stubborn, impatient, which I'm kind of still not patient. But I do have the discipline and the commitment. Patience, I'm still working on. And phenomena started happening, and
so your psychic abilities have never been gone. It was just like a reactivation.
Yeah, because Saint Germain would help me with math, going through school. I talked to them quite a bit, and of course he kept saying, be patient, be patient. And then he would say to me, pay attention to what's truly important. And I had no idea, you know, what that meant. Now I do. And so I talked to them. I'd go out into up into the mountains, the Cascade Mountains, to go fishing, because that's one of my favorite things to do. This is a good one. I was 12 years old, and I had just moved in with a gentleman that I thought was my dad, and I never could figure out why he didn't like me. Today I know why. But I was fishing, and I was thinking about jumping in the river to drown myself. 12 years old, And this little short man comes out of the tree line with a fishing pole, and he's wearing the fishing garb and the fishing hat with the hooks in it. And he just started talking to me and helping me resolve all this stuff I was going through. Mm-hmm. And then he said, "Well, I need to go now." And I call him the little short fisherman.
Yeah.
And he smiled at me, and I swear to God, I saw his eyes twinkle. Mm. And it wasn't because the sun was hitting his eyes, because it was cloudy. And he turns around and he walks away. And I'm realizing at that moment, he didn't have any line or hook on his pole. He was just standing there. Mm. And then before, about, I'd say 10 feet before he got to the tree line, he disappeared. Later, I found out it was actually Jesus who came to me and says, "Quit thinking about leaving this world. You got things to do,
So there has always been a lot of support from the spiritual world for you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I never really felt unloved, but I did relative to the physical people, Mm-hmm. And I have to tell you, my wife, her name's Pamela, and she's German, by the way. She just doesn't.
Is she?
Yeah, she just doesn't speak German, but she's working on it. And she has given me the evidence within myself. I mean, this woman is so loving and caring. I know what it's like to find that one special person to be with. We do have our little spats once in a while, but making up is really fun. And she's a blessing. She's like my angel from heaven, coming there, because I really don't believe if I hadn't met her, I wouldn't be here today. And she's always been there for me through good and bad. She's seen some of the negativity that's happened to me from other people, which is a shame, that kind of thing happens. But she's the lady that I will spend the rest of my life with. Mm-hmm. And there's really no words how my heart feels. Mm-hmm. She's just a special lady, and thank God she is who she is, because I don't know very many women that could put up with me.
That's something I also wanted to ask. I also know Pam, and I appreciate her very much. And it's a pity she's not here now. I would also have liked to ask her some questions. But what do you think if I would ask her, how is it to live with a physical medium? What would she answer?
Well, I do know a little bit how she would answer. She would say, very, 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 very weird.
What does that mean?
Well, that means that she's experienced things that's just not out of the normal physical world. And one minute I'll be sitting there watching TV, talking to her, and all of a sudden my voice changes and it's somebody else. So she never really knows, but she can tell when it's not me. Mm-hmm. Because I don't act like me. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because the masters come in my body. Even my daughters that still live with us have got a clue. That's not Dad.
And why do the masters do this? Go into your body in these situations?
Well, one of the reasons is so they can communicate to my wife and kids. Mm-hmm. But the other reason is it's like constantly creating a battery, taking the very essence of my life force energy and keeping it going for the mediumship. It's like keep adding batteries and knowledge. Because if you don't do that, you become stagnant. Then you have to start all over again. You know?
When we bring him. Get that off, get it.
So being a physical medium is really a passion for you, or was it a point where you wanted to give up being a physical medium?
I have always wanted to do it. There wasn't a day in my 61 years that I didn't want to. I remember during the 60s, when I was a young boy, the love that was there in that church in Seattle, the compassion towards one another, the love, the excitement, the people coming from all over the world. And I mean, my grandfather had to put speakers out on the roof so people that were outside that couldn't get into the church could hear what was going on. And I was spoiled. I was a little brat, and I always got the front row aisle seat, you know, when I was able to sit on my own. And before that, it would either be my grandmother or later a lady by the name of Carmen Fogels would have me in their lap. But my passion to do this is to try to help bring forth that kind of love and compassion and knowledge to people, you know, and to let them know that there is no real difference in regards to levels of people. We're all just as important, and God gave us all a gift, and each gift is just as important as the next. It's amazing to see an individual go from depression in life, dancing and being happy and falling in love and having children and raising their children and having a good life. And through my work and with the masters, I've seen that happen. And I don't claim that I've done it. It's the individual that has to make the choice.
Yeah, that's something you stress very often, that we have free will. And so we always decide ourselves how much we open for the spirit world and how much they can work through us. Your father was a famous physical medium, Keith Milton Reinhardt, but as much as I know, you didn't grow up with him. Do you have a connection to him? Does he work through you, or is he an inspiration for you?
Well, I have to say this first. I did not know that he was my dad. And there's a lot of controversy with people that knew him, that do not believe this, okay? And I honestly can't blame them. I legally changed my name to Mychael Shane, which is an ancestor of mine, because I was named after Keith Reinhardt. My original birth name is Keith Milton Lester, because I took the last name of the guy I thought, you know, was my dad. And I didn't want people to accuse me of trying to steal Keith Reinhardt's, you know.
Yes.
And so I changed my name. Sam saw my old passport, so he knows the story is accurate and true. I had a woman who worked with Keith Reinhardt very closely, that told me that she knew I was his son. And it's hard to believe in some people's mind because he was gay. But I guess that didn't matter. But it wasn't until I received some red cowboy boots. It was a gift to me. And I had them inspected by someone I knew.
And these were from him, these
They were
cowboy
his.
boots? His cowboy boots.
I even got pictures of him wearing the boots. But there was some old DNA from skin in the top of the boot, you know, the boot where it goes like that. And it was analyzed, and my DNA was analyzed, and it came back that whoever wore those boots would have been my biological father, or at least a relative. It just couldn't say for sure that it was actually Keith, because he had been cremated. In fact, he was cremated awful quick, which I'm a little suspicious about. But I believe, because there would have been no reason for him to have had someone else wear those boots, and then he's recently come to me in the last few years and told me what happened. That part of the story is personal, relative to her or him and my mother, and he said that he was proud of me, which at the time when he said it, I started crying. But he doesn't really work with me. He leaves that to the masters that work with me. He is in Shambhala. He is learning mastery, and they call him now Master Kumara. Though he hasn't yet graduated, like Saint Germain became an ascended master and graduated into Shambhala in 1874. And time and space is really unique because there really is no time and space. So it doesn't matter how long the training is, it's instantaneous or it's not.
Yeah.
But I wanted to set the record straight. There is evidence there, but I'm not looking for anything from his estate, or the only thing I would really like to do is just have an opportunity just once to perform a séance in the same space that he did it at the church, which apparently doesn't look like that's ever going to happen.
Yeah.
So.
But also in your séances, you have so many different things happening there. You have the stone apports, and not only stones, the apports of coins. You were talking about flowers, once even animals, and we have this little precipitated art from masters like Monet, which come through. You do billet reading. You have Q&A with the masters. You have healing sessions. One most impressive experience for me was when I got a healing from a master in one of your séances, sitting about 2 meters away from the cabinet, and there was a light being wide and tall and with very touching me, and that was so touching for me. Really.
Of course, I don't remember that.
Yeah, you were in the cabinet. It was really about 2 meters away from the cabinet, so very impressive experience for me. But how was it when you sat the first time in the cabinet? Was there already happening something?
Absolutely not. I was very stubborn. I wanted to do things my way. Didn't work very well. I sat in training for the first 6 months with absolutely nothing happening, because the person that was Weston Bailey, he didn't really know exactly what to do. And then Saint Germain took over and started working with me, but I was still stubborn about things. And then finally, about just close to a year later, I come in, we had 20 people that would sit for me on Sunday evenings. And I go, all right, Uncle, I give. What do you want me to do? And I did what Saint Germain said. I learned how to disconnect from my consciousness and how to go into trance. And then about 8 weeks later, Lady Nada spoke for the first time.
Oh.
And she said, "It's about time." That was the first thing she said.
You are a beautiful, beautiful group. I love you. Now, the world is fine. It is the people that need an enema. It is all a learning experience, and you are the ones that will make it possible to integrate into the positive. Worldwide and individual are going through a troubled time, and we hope, pray, and affirm that you will be successful.
And then I started to bring through communication, and then apports, but they were all done in darkened condition. Most of which came through a little cloud of ectoplasm, not through the body, like I do now. And I did that until, let's see, I believe it was 1998 or 98, when it took me 3 years to train to do lighted apportation, because it's very dangerous. It creates a negative health toll on the physical body. And as you notice, a lot of physical mediums are, they got the tubby there. And it's because of the sugars and the proteins and things that they got to do to continue the development of ectoplasm, to do the phenomena. And so the first thing that it apported was a 3-carat ruby given by Master Jesus. And then nothing for a few weeks, probably closer to 3 months. And then all of a sudden, all these amethyst gemstones started coming out of my chest area onto the floor. Nobody could see it. It just, you could hear them, I guess, because I was in trance, because I wasn't prepared or ready to do it awake. But it's not about the monetary value. It's not about what kind of material it is. It's about the message, the love, and the healing that's programmed within it.
And now you bring through the apports in bright light. How does it feel to bring through an apport?
In the beginning, when I started doing the lighted apportations, I was scared a little bit, I seriously had to have Saint Germain help me through it. The pain was like having an alien in your body eating its way out. Can you imagine that? But then later, I got more used to it, and now it feels kind of like I'm half in and half out of my body. But the part that's on the outside of my body, I feel like Jesus is holding me. So I feel safe. And it happens. The big one from last night, I knew it was getting stuck, so I was a little concerned, because that one got stuck too. And it chipped my top tooth back here. So you have something that damaged my teeth, so feel good about that.
Oh, wow.
Huge ones. That's incredible.
But now it just feels like tingling, you know, and I choose to do the majority of the apportations out from underneath my tongue. But recently, with Sam being present, I had an apport about that long come out of my chest right here. We have a picture of it. It comes out, and then you can see it close up, and then there's like a red coloring on the skin. I've had it come from my forehead. I've had up to 1,100 gemstones come out of my eyes.
But when it comes out of your body, there's nothing after, no hole, no wound, no...
There is for a brief moment. You got to really look. I don't look because I don't want to see it because it'll freak me out. But I've had people see it. I've had people see the vortex under my tongue. And the reason why I rather apport here is the skin under there is thinner than any other skin on your body, on the outside of your body.
So it's easier to...
It's easier. But it's the vortex is only open on a very brief level because of the light hitting the ectoplasm, which keeps the vortex open. And it slowly dissipates, closing the vortex. And if something like this is coming through, something's got to give, and that's usually my teeth, because this is bigger than the cavity of my head.
Yeah.
And then this one here has a unique shape and color. This is actually outer world. It's not from Earth.
That would be my next question. Where do the apports come from? Are they created, or do they come from another place, or do
Well,
you
actually,
know?
all of the above. As everyone knows that understands and knows about Saint Germain, he's an alchemist. So some of the objects that come through, he created through the process of alchemy. Other articles would say Sabine lost her jewelry, a piece of jewelry, and she never did find it for 30 Earth days. Then the masters, they can see the energy of these objects. They don't see it physically, they see the energy, because that's what everything is. All this is just an illusion. And then they're allowed to take it. Now, they either give it, you know, somehow make it materialize back to the individual that lost it, or they keep it and bring it through, or they keep it. The ones that are coming from me, they start bringing them through in Shambhala. But they could come from anywhere in the world and outer world and interdimensionally. Saint Germain will take articles such as these and put them on a wooden table that's made out of rosewood, and it has kind of a indentation in it so some of the objects don't roll off the table. But that's just a makeshift energy that isn't really a solid. It's still energy in motion. Then in his spirit, his heart opens up here, and a silver energy goes onto the object that's in a solid form, allowing the object to manifest in its natural existence, which is energy in motion. He takes that and wills that energy into a vortex that's, about this big around. And that energy goes into the vortex. And because there is no distance in the reality of everything around us, the origin and the destination are in the same space and time.
Okay.
So they go in and immediately come out. And in my case, when it's under the tongue, for a brief moment, that energy turns into a gas. But no one's ever been able to see that because it's really, really quick. And then it goes into a fluidy form. Sometimes when you see me apporting, you'll see fluid or some color of fluid coming out of my mouth. That's actually ectoplasm. It's not water or saliva, because when you look at the sheet that they come on, it's dry.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so are the objects, by the way. And they'll come through, and then as it hits the light or the third dimension, they begin to solidify. Mm-hmm. And then once the light hits the vortex starts to close, and then hopefully I'm still in good shape.
Yeah. Sometimes when I tell people about my experiences and being in a physical séance, I hear, oh, I already know the spirit world exists. What is it good for? What would you answer?
Education. You know, to give a little nudge, because the masters will not tell you what to do. It's for educational purposes, to help, to be part of our the human soul involution and evolution, to give us ideas of what our capacity of being able to do, because life is not about waking up in the morning, going to work from 9 to 5, come home, turn on the TV, yell at the kids, eat dinner, and go to bed, and then start the same thing over again. We are evolving, and the masters are there for that purpose, to help us evolve and leaving little crumbs in the path on the way to help us with that process. And right now, there's not that much new information that's coming through, but I've been told that I will be bringing through that through the masters. I'm excited to hear what that's going to be, and so forth. But the best thing, the greatest thing that they do is to remind us that everything is love, even the negative. Eventually, it will all come in and integrate in perfect balance. And the masters are there to help us see that, learn that, and understand it, and continue to evolve beyond this illusion and give it back to the elementals, because this is actually their space, you know.
And yeah, combined with the apports, the apports usually are for special persons in your sources, and there's always, they are combined with a special energy.
Yeah, for instance, this one here, my glasses here, there's these little facets, okay? Mm-hmm. Honestly, the facets are actually doorways, and inside those spaces is pieces of programming, billions and billions of programming. And what I learn is that I don't believe I know everything, but the masters tell me stuff. And it's funny, because Saint Germain says, they don't know everything either. That's God's job, and he says, and I really don't want that job. So, but anyway, they are faceted with knowledge. Like, for instance, this one, I can feel that there's information relative to a star chart of places that we can see from that new telescope, but there's actually life there. And there's a planet really close to our existence that does have, it's bigger than Earth, but it has life. And apparently they look very similar to us. Not the same, but similar. So each object has facets that holds information, but not just knowledge. It also holds healing. It holds the vibration of love, and to activate infinite light within.
I remember I once got a stone from you. It was said to be from the archangels, and then I went to a jeweler because I wanted to have a ring, and he said he had never seen before a stone with these facets. It was really unique. He said, I never saw this before. That's really special. So, and he also asked me, where did you get
you tell
this
the
from?
truth?
Yeah, I told him, and he said, oh, that's really interesting. He was open for it, so we had a really nice talk.
I always say it was from an estate from my grandparents.
Oh, okay.
But my wife, Pamela, she was working at a gold and silver jewelry store in Erie, Pennsylvania. Some people say, that's where he gets his stuff. Well, that's not true.
Yeah.
But anyway, we had a ring that I had made, and the jeweler thought it was a glass stone. In retrospect, he realized it was a material he didn't know existed.
Yeah.
And I have that. I don't travel with my apports too much, other than I have a specific bag that I bring with me for protection and stuff. But my rings, my jewelry, I don't take with me anymore because I'm worrying that someone will steal it. Because that happened to me in Ibiza. They opened up my suitcase and took all of our stuff, and then when it came out on the belt, my suitcase was open and underwear and everything was everywhere. But you know, those things happen, and what it means is we no longer needed that stuff. So, but there was a lady that I was working with in Erie who took a piece of an apport. It took an apport to the same place, and they started getting suspicious and asking, where did this stuff come from? And she told them. And my wife goes, because she's working there.
Yeah.
You know, and it wasn't a really nice outcome for her.
Oh.
But some of these objects are unusual, not seen before, facets are not the same, or ones that you normally see. The spirit world is in the same space that we are. There is no veil. That's the one thing that science is not understanding. They're trying to figure out the bridge between the physical and the spirit, right? Well, it's the same space. Everything exists together. You know, when your loved one dies, they don't really die. They just shed this, which is basically a protective meat suit, which is what I like to call it, you know? And they're with you. I mean, how many of you in this life sat alone knowing there wasn't anybody else in the house, and all of a sudden you hear your name? Loud and clear. That's generally a loved one. Or you could put your cup of whatever you're drinking here, focus on whatever's going on there, go back to get your cup. It's not there, but it's over here now. That's your loved ones, for the most part, letting you know they're still there. They haven't gone anywhere. They're still there. There's a spirit here that's here most of the time when I've been here. You know who I'm talking about. He's still here. You can feel it, you know it, and it's just beautiful. My grandparents, they come around me from time to time. One of my best friends who committed suicide comes around me. He didn't come around me for years, but last year he came for the first time.
The spirit you were talking about who is here, I think we all know who you mean. Is there anything he wants to tell us?
Mostly, he's pretty quiet. He's watching. But the only really big message that I'd like to share that he has brought through, to remember to love yourself. And do not, I want to say it the way he said it. He said, always do the things that you want to do. Life is unexpected and it's short. That's what he said.
Oh, so thank you.
Yeah.
You can say thank you to him. Yeah,
He's
it's
not
very
here
good.
right now.
No, but when next time you see him, that's a very good message for us. Yeah.
373.
Ja, 373.
Continue to sit in the cabinet.
Du sollst weiterhin im Kabinett sitzen.
And it's very important that the sitters, the audience, I guess you could say, your circle,
Und ganz wichtig ist, dass diejenigen, die mit dir sitzen, also dein Zirkel,
have discipline,
dass die diszipliniert sind
commitment,
und dass die voller Hingabe sind
and patience
und geduldig sind,
to sit with you.
mit dir zu sitzen.
And then you also have the same, to be patient for the process to continue to connect to you.
Aber auch du sollst geduldig sein, damit dieser Prozess stattfinden kann, damit du in dieser Verbindung sein kannst. Also die Frage ist, wie kann ich Fortschritt machen mit unserer Séance-Gruppe?
The first one in the next year or two will be a little difficult to maintain, but the one after that's coming is lightning and fireworks and excitement.
Was für eine Art von Beziehung wird zu mir kommen in den nächsten 5 Jahren?
You always say when you have the Q&A in your seances, yesterday you said, if you don't have a question right now, then just ask, what do the masters think I should know right now?
Well, Saint Germain is actually talking to me right now. And what he would say to the people is to believe in yourself, to love yourself. When you believe in yourself and you love yourself and you feel good about yourself, so do everybody else. The negative is not really any different than the positive. They're one and the same. It's just they exist in a different vibration or energy, and it'll eventually integrate. As we perceive the negative, it is a learning experience, but so is the positive. And it's equal. There's just as much positive as there is negative, although sometimes we would argue that, depending on who you are and what you go through. But if you remember one of the comments and statements that Jesus has made, all things are connected. All experiences are connected. Everything, as Einstein once said, relative. And I believe that because I have seen and experienced the good and the bad and the ugly. I say that because of the movie. And Jesus says, in every negative thing that's happened, look for the positive because it's there. And then he used his crucifixion as an example. Yeah, that was not a very wonderful thing to go through. However, it changed people's lives to the better, and it's still going on today. And that was over 2,000 years ago. And we're still talking about it and feeling it, So just to remember to just love, and you'll see as our evolution continues, that's how we'll live our life. No need of war, police, prisons, military, nothing. live our belief and live in peace. Because honestly, how many people here have ever heard a child say, I'm going to grow up and be a bank robber and mean it, you know? I'm going to be a mass murderer. You know, that doesn't happen. So if you just let the negative dissipate and bring in the love and let people just live in peace, they will live in peace. And that's a message that the masters have given me over and over and over.
So love is not part of the duality.
No, love is part of the whole, or God. It integrates, it brings, it's like a glue, a super duper pooper scooper's glue. You know, it holds it and creates that intention of why we even came to this realm.
To experience love or to develop to love?
Both. Yep. And I do honestly believe, beyond Webster's dictionary meaning, that love, the true essence of love, is God. And we feel that every day. Just we don't recognize it sometimes because we get stuck with our trials and tribulations, worrying about this and worrying about that. And I'm no different. I mean, Sam knows I worry about everything every day. You know, I worry about, am I ever going to come back? Am I going to do this? Am I going to do that? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? You know, just that, trying to get that. Because, you know, by myself, I wouldn't do that. But I have a family, you know, and everything that happens to me happens to them, the good and the bad, you know, because they love you.
Yeah.
And they have compassion. And the earth and the people, the earth is fine, but it's the people need to express and create compassion for one another and for the self.
But for your personal life, do you get guidance from the masters for your personal life?
Yes, and sometimes I have to have a spanking too, you know. They call it eating crow or humble pie. But they also do, you know, they help me through certain things.
Können gerne aufstehen und etwas näher kommen.
With every physical medium, there have been a lot of accusations of being fraud, and I think also in your case. How do you live with that?
Well, I don't really. It really bothers me. I've had scientific testing by different scientists, to include your husband there. I've been prodded and probed, x-rayed, locked in boxes, shackled, handcuffed, tied, chained, cable tied. I've done everything I possibly can to show that this is not fake. And every once in a while there's someone who just doesn't want to believe it, partly out of fear or out of misunderstanding. And that's why Saint Germain, educate yourself. He always says, educate yourself. Don't pass judgment until you've learned it, right? And I get really depressed. I get angry. I want to choke some people sometimes, you know, but I think the masters would be a little upset with me if I did. And I did some study. I went back to 1835 to every physical medium from that point forward. Every single one of them have had negative writings about them. But we're in duality, right? Every single person that was a physical medium also had positive. You know, if you look at Madame Blavatsky, Sir William Crookes, who was the scientist that was testing her, when he first heard of her, he was convinced it was all fake. So he went and sat through some of her séances, and then some message came through that only he knew, and he got interested and he started testing, and he qualified her as a real, honest-to-goodness physical medium. And then the controversy. He was a married man. She wasn't a married woman, and so they wrote a paper article that they were having an affair, but that wasn't really the case. And then through her works with Saint Germain, Katumi, and El Morya, and a few others, they created the Theosophical Society and the writings of the Masters, the Secret Doctrine, and others. You know, it's a wonderful read. And poor Marjorie Crandon, who was attacked by Harry Houdini, and she was the only medium that actually passed his tests, and he still owes her the $10,000 because he never paid her. You know, and then Arthur Ford, who was the one that cracked the Houdini code, they accused him of having an affair with Bess Houdini, and the man was a gay man. I mean, he, you know, in those days it was illegal.
Yeah.
So they didn't, you know, say anything about his orientation.
Yes.
Which I think is a shame. I mean, you know, there's people should have the right to choose and express their love wherever they feel necessary, you know. But he unusually lived to be about 71 years old, which most physical mediums don't live that long. They usually pass on in the 60s.
Oh, really?
Normally,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. But it doesn't mean it happens all the time. So to add, I mean, right now, there's a couple of organizations right now that are going live on interviews and online, social media. Saint Germain calls social media the modern day devil, you know, attacking the present physical mediums right now. They haven't yet focused on me, but I'm waiting, you know. But other mediums, I mean, am I allowed to say his name? Kai?
Yeah.
Okay. I know that they have said there's a whole article that wasn't very positive about him. And that is a travesty. It is so hurtful and untrue because I really honestly believe in my own heart that the man is authentic. I mean, literally, a little creature, the only séance I was in with him, a little green creature came out from underneath his cabinet when he was in Reno, and went around the room and he was giggling. It was kind of a weird giggle, and he came over to me, and he stopped. I don't know if it was a he or a she or what, and had three fingers, touched my knee, and I had gotten ran over by a truck, my own truck, which is kind of funny, and I had constant pain here. You know, I'd do some healing work and the pain would go away for a little bit, but it would come back. He just touched it and then went on his way and then disappeared back under the cabinet. And when I got back to my hotel room, I'm going, wait, there's no pain. And I had no pain for 6 months.
Oh, wow.
You know?
Yeah.
And I've just seen too much that violates physical law to assume that he may not be real. I believe he is 100%. And there are others out there. Some of them are, some of them aren't. And to go out and discredit somebody, even if you believe they are, doesn't mean they are fake. You have to allow people to use their own faculties and their own free will to choose and decide on their own. Don't try to control this or that. Because let's say the individual is real and you're saying it's not and you're turning a bunch of people against him, that's very hurtful. especially in my case, you know, for a brief moment, sometimes I say, I'm just not going to do this anymore. And then I wake up and realize, now I better keep going. You know, don't let them win.
Yeah. But do you get support from other physical mediums?
There's a lot of jealousy and apprehension towards one another in the mediumship world. I'm not jealous of them, but I do have and received a lot of support from Kai and his wife. And that's not why I say he's real. It's what I've seen and felt here. But yeah, you know, and the other mediums have said negative things about me. But, you know, I'm not going to, in a public setting or on camera, say who they are. It doesn't matter, because it's only my opinion, you see. And what they say to me should be just between that person and myself. To go out and say, oh, this person did this, and this person said that, and this person's a fraud because I know it's a fraud, that's not right. You let people use their own faculties to decide for themselves, you know?
Yeah.
And God bless them all, even the ones that attack you, because they're exercising and learning from it, you know? So let them do what they're going to do, and let us do what we're going to do, and sooner or later we'll all end up getting along and open up a bottle of champagne and have a good time.
Yeah, you know? That sounds good.
59, cameras on? Yes. 60. Coming. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 29, 30.
Okay. It has laser sights and it's flowing from the ears for those who may not see it well.
14, 15, 16.
Oh, wow! Say high five.
Hold the counting. I have Mychael to come with his finger and touch the substance softly with one finger. Eckhart.
Eckhart mit dem Finger.
One finger.
Where should I touch it?
Mit einem
Just touch the substance. Just softly.
Oh, it feels like, well, difficult to describe. Soft, but somewhat stiff. It's not really.
Okay, and then you just back off a little bit there, and then you may also just quickly touch the substance here.
It's like Oropax.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now
Is your way to catch.
25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Opening on the
Now,
you can come as near as you can.
Hans der Teufel.
hold it down just
With different mediums and different seances, you sometimes get a little bit different information that comes through. For example, concerning political, social issues, or this is like that, or this is like that, concerning spirit guides or something. So the information is not always
The
same, and that might be irritating sometimes for people. How do you explain that?
The best way I can explain that, what's being said is basically that individual's truth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has a truth. It's not the same as everybody else's, maybe similar, but difference. If I say to you that my truth is the absolute truth and your truth isn't truth, that wouldn't be correct.
Mm-hmm.
Because your truth is true, my truth is true. You see? Because that is your truth, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to outside of the medium's truth, they're working through that medium, the spirit.
Mm-hmm.
So an element of their consciousness and belief comes through.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah.
And that's when it's real. All right?
Mm-hmm.
The other side of that is sometimes the medium isn't real and is giving messages that they think the audience wants to hear.
Okay.
And that's kind of a shame.
Yeah.
But it's still, how do we know that what they're saying, even if it comes from their own consciousness, that it's not true?
Mm.
You see? In regards to politics in the United States, I've had messages from the masters, and they've shared it with people to just relax, let it take its place, and it'll go away, and then something else will come. And they even say it's been that way ever since time began. You know, you have your bad, and you have your good, and then you have your bad, and you have your good. You know, it's like that. It's just this judgment that is always seeming to be a problem. And in mediumship, at a very young age, we're indoctrinated that physical law is the only law that exists. But there is a universal law.
Mm.
And that universal law goes against the physical law, because this apportation thing, just as an example, isn't supposed to be able to happen. So, well, that's got to be fake because it doesn't fit the physical law.
Mm.
And there's a new paradigm being created right now where there's a higher understanding on how this is possible. I mean, here you got right here. It's a landscape, you know, little flowers and lily pads and oceans or water or whatever's trees. This is allegedly a Monet, who's in spirit, who took a blank piece of canvas, dematerialized it into the spirit realm, created this, and this one is actually an absolute copy of the one he painted that was bigger.
Mm-hmm.
You see? And so some people say, oh, he purchased that online. Well, I'd like them to prove that, because I didn't. And so if he's dead, how did he do this? It's hard for people to wrap their mind around it.
Difficult to understand because it's not compatible with our physical
But you can't
view of the world.
You really can't judge them for that, because their belief, and you can't take that away from them, is this is not possible. You see? But there is so many things that is happening in our individual lives that you just can't explain away, that shouldn't happen. You know, we try to explain it away. Oh, my daughter is just talking to the invisible friend. There's nobody, you know. She's okay. She's just, you know. But I guarantee you, I would say 100% of the time, that child is actually communicating to a spirit.
There's the water. Wow, amazing. All right. Beautiful.
Perfect.
Okay. Then now we're gonna cut the torch piece right there. Scissor further down. There you go. Yeah.
And they could turn this other lights
And
on
would you
too.
turn it?
Yeah, everything on.
For the Omen also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If the light is dimmed or dark, you might go back into trance.
We don't want that, do we? And if you notice, there's no gemstones or anything in the
Und da sind
banana.
also keine Edelsteine versteckt.
This could take anywhere from 3 minutes to 45 minutes.
But up to now it was always very short.
All right, see you soon. Thank you. The lady with the cup? The cup? Okay, the cup. Oh, and on the cup, the lady with the, yeah, there we go. Oh, that's a big one. Wow, amazing. Amazing. That's pretty incredible.
Oh, wow.
Huge ones. That's incredible. Wow. It's like a tear. Okay. All right. Mr. Odessa, the orange flame. Usually the yellow is connected to Master Kutumi Lasing. It's for mental purification and clarification of the mental body. The blue is Master Almoria.
In closing, I just would like to tell everybody, believe in your truth, educate yourself, and please do not forget to express love for yourself and for others, and appreciate the family that you have, even if there's some ups and downs, and live your life. Namaste.
So thank you very much, Michael.